if I'm just going to prioritize having this mega feast, what else falls by the wayside? Hey everybody, welcome back to Smith Party of Six. I am Audriana Smith, and this is our family channel where we talk all about homeschooling. So you probably noticed from whatever I ended up titling this video that I kind of wanted to share with you guys about homeschooling priorities today. Also, random fun fact, I'm currently sporting this awesome elven ring mug today because we're Lord of the Ring nerds, if you couldn't tell from the fact that we named one of our daughters Arwen. So it's obviously been a little while since I posted anything, and I've definitely had people asking like how things have been going, wanting life updates, that sort of thing. People are really excited about the fact that we're using Simply Charlotte Mason stuff now too. And I do definitely want to get into all of that in a separate video where I kind of just break down all the things that we're doing for school this year. But first, before I do that, I just kind of wanted to lay some foundation and just have more of like kind of a heart-to-heart today, just things that have been really important for me this year. Obviously, I'm a Christian. I talk about the Lord a lot on this channel. And if you too are a Christian and you have been walking with the Lord for any time at all, you'll know that a lot of times there are just like different seasons that he has you in where he is highlighting or showing you specific areas that you need to work on. And this year, it has definitely been a big focus on priorities. I don't remember exactly when I had made the last video, but in it I shared that we weren't going to really be doing a lot of stuff with Ambleside anymore. It just felt like it was going to be too cumbersome. I've got 4 kids, and so having them all split up for everything, I could just tell was going to be a lot. It ended up being a godsend that I did not stick with Ambleside. Honestly, this is nothing against Ambleside. However, if I had stuck with what we would have been doing, we would have absolutely drowned this year. God was already kind of moving me into position and getting me ready for exactly what we would need to do because he knew better than I did and knew any of the stuff that would be coming our way much better than I did. And honestly, like, I don't know what we would have done. I would have had to pivot very, very quickly. Even in kind of my pared back version of what we ended up doing, there have still been areas that have had to be cut. I am learning to hold absolutely everything with a very open hand, I feel like, and to not cling too hard to all of those plans that I thought of over summer, and instead to really focus on those things that are top priority. So if you had asked me before, I felt like I've been doing this the entire time in our homeschooling journey and kind of always figuring out, okay, what is the priority here? Now, education has always been top-notch, huge priority. That's why I love Charlotte Mason. I love the whole feast of education. But if I'm honest, there's also sometimes a temptation there because I love the feast of education so much to grab just as much of everything as I possibly can. In some seasons, that can work, especially if education is the only priority number one and everything else kind of falls way down below it somewhere. But this year, there has definitely been a real shift in my priorities. So to be a little bit more specific, instead of talking so vaguely, one of the things that the Lord laid on my heart this year, for example, was that I really wanted us to go back to BSF. If you don't know what BSF is, it stands for Bible Study Fellowship. It's an international Bible study, interdenominational. So, it's not just like one certain group of Christians that participates in Bible Study Fellowship. It's literally anyone who calls themselves a Christian. And we used to do BSF when the kids were really little. So like Arwen was a baby the last time that we were there. And then I had gotten pregnant with Aspen. I tried to go that year, but honestly, I just wasn't feeling it. I was pretty sick. And so we ended up staying home and not doing it anymore after that. And then, with school and all of the things, we just haven't ever been back. So when I was in it last time that I actually completed the full year, we were in the study of John. So I think that they just did that again this last year, but it would have been way before that when they studied John when I was in it too. And it was such a good experience back then. I grew a lot while I was in BSF because you're taking your time studying through a particular book, and a lot of times they bring in cross references from other places in scripture too. And so you might be studying in John, but then you hop over to First John for a week or so, or maybe this other spot in the Bible where it ties in for a week. So yeah, you're really doing like a deep dive. And you have a discussion group with other women, and there's really a whole lot of iron sharpening iron going on with that sort of thing. And it's good for the kids too, because the kids can come, and it's not like it's just like babysitting that's going on there. Like whatever you're learning, that's also what they're learning that week, but just kind of in an age appropriate manner, in a way that makes sense for them. So I just really had it on my heart that I wanted us to be able to go back to BSF this year. And it's a morning class, so that means that we're doing school 4 days a week now and going to BSF 1 day a week. And I didn't just want it for me, like I also really wanted it for the kids. Our particular BSF class that we go to has a really nice student program. There's lots of other kids there that are their ages, I should say. And so I was just like, yeah, you know what, this feels like what we're supposed to do this year. And it has been such a huge blessing. This year we're studying Revelation. And by the way, this is not like some plug for BSF. If it's something that you're interested in, then you should totally get involved. It's been a very big blessing for our family. And so of course I just share about it and talk about it, but this isn't like some plug to try to get you to go to BSF, but more just showing you this was a priority that God put on my heart this year, and I followed it instead of grasping on to my idea of what school needed to look like this year. And now, like with doing so, I wonder in what ways it would have affected us if I hadn't done that, but we'll come back to that here in just a minute. But I feel like my thoughts are all over the place. I hope this makes sense. It's been a huge blessing for us this year. So first of all, for me personally, obviously, there's going to be growth there. We're in the book of Revelation. This is the first time that they've ever done Revelation at BSF. And like I said, it's interdenominational. And of course, there's lots of different viewpoints and ideas and things like that. BSF is really good about making sure that we know that there are other viewpoints out there. They do have a specific viewpoint themselves, but that doesn't mean that everybody that goes to BSF has that same viewpoint. This isn't really something that I've talked about a lot here on this channel, but on a channel that we have with our friends, I actually did a video on Christian unity, I think last year. I'll link it down below if you're interested in it. But over the last like several years, many years actually now, God has kind of had me on this journey with Christian unity, which I didn't really realize that that's what he was doing at first. I thought that I was on this one certain journey, and really I was studying different groups because I just really wanted truth. And I felt like I needed to re-examine my own beliefs and why I believed the way that I did. And I started studying different Christian groups and trying to understand church history and how we got the doctrines that we have today and just different things like that. And as God sort of wove all the threads and the pieces together, what really came to light was Christian unity. Because with each Christian group that I would study, it was like they had all these things that I needed, and there was so much beauty in some of the things that they focused on that I wouldn't have necessarily focused on before. And so I really learned a lot from all of them. But then of course with each group there are also pitfalls. Maybe they're really focusing in on certain things to the exclusion of others. And of course everybody's trying to follow the word in the best way that they know how. I just really got an appreciation for the fact that even though there are all these different denominations, like we're all the church, we are all together, brothers and sisters as one. One day there will not be any denominational divides, and we will be worshiping as one, and we'll be glorifying the Lord as one together for all of eternity. And going to BSF, it feels like just a little slice of that, just like a little piece of that. Like you wouldn't think that we would all be able to get together and talk about, I mean, really lots of different books of the Bible, let alone Revelation. Like there's going to be different viewpoints. And yet when we're all there, it's beautiful. I learned so much from the other women that are there and their viewpoints or little tidbits that they share, or even just like little testimonies that they give of things throughout the week, or, you know, other side conversations that we have. Like it just blesses me to be getting to know these women. And beyond my own personal growth, then there's also the growth with my kids too. So BSF has ended up being what we're just doing for Bible this year. I had other stuff that we were also doing. That was one of the things that got pared down. And I was like, you know what? This is enough. Like, we can just really focus on our BSF questions, talking through Revelation and the other books that they pull in. Like last week, we were in the book of Daniel. This is enough. We can focus on this as a family. And so there's been so many good discussions from that. There are always good discussions when it comes to Bible study with kids. And I love that then they get to go and talk to their friends at BSF about it too. Like they're all having these spiritual discussions with one another. And beyond even just the spiritual, like sometimes things are just good for your soul in general, just like they just make you feel good and just bring you joy. One of my children in particular, we have lots of friends that we get together and hang out with, but for some reason, the gender of these friends' children tends to kind of swing in one direction. And so I've been praying about one of my children in particular, and just that they would have more godly friends who are like actually able to get a little bit closer. You know, they all have sports that they do, which they do have friends there. And we have church, of course, and like I said, our friend group. But for this one specific child, it just felt slightly lacking. And the very first day after class, when I went to go and pick them up, I just wanted to cry, honestly, because it was such a blessing to see this child being embraced by the other kids there, like literally just giving lots of hugs and like, can't wait to see you next week. Like just immediate friendships being made. As much as we like to talk in the homeschool community about how public school socialization is false socialization, which it really is, there is some value there to them being able to be with people their own age who they see all the time. There's a lot of forced proximity happening there, and so they get used to one another. So there is something to be said about that, even though maybe the connections that they would make at public school aren't always the ones that we would want them to. You know, with homeschooling, we have to be very intentional if we want our kids to make good connections with other people. And so to see BSF being that kind of bridge for my kids to have some nice, good, solid Christian friends, that's been probably one of my favorite parts, even beyond, you know, me meeting new people. And even though the spiritual growth is so important, I've been really happy with the connections that have been made for my kids too. All right, but I'll get off that topic now. So beyond BSF, there's been other prioritization too. Even my dog is groaning. I'm waking her up with my voice. So even beyond just what we're prioritizing outside of school time, I've had to kind of take a look at, even within their education, what areas are actually the most important, and kind of consolidating, at least for this season. I see a lot of questions in like Charlotte Mason Facebook groups, especially like curriculum specific groups, where moms who are new to Charlotte Mason will be asking like, is this actually doable? And I've even had those questions myself too, you know, people asking me, how do you do all of this? Is it actually doable? Like, is this actually realistic? And previously, the way that I would answer it, just because it had been my experience, that yeah, it can totally be doable. Like, were some days a little tight and people's attention and focus kind of wandering and got to get them back on track and all that. Yeah, there were days where we went over the time that I had expected to go or whatever, but like it was doable. Like I could do it. And now this year has just been, I feel like, slightly humbling, honestly, just because, I don't know, I felt like we were able to just juggle so much over the last couple of years. And I would look at our schedule and I would just feel so satisfied. Like all of the boxes that I got to check off of their schedules, look at all the things that we're getting done. This is glorious. This year has not been like that. And so when people ask the doable question now, honestly, like just to be really real with you, if you are a mom out there and you are wondering, is this doable? Is some sort of Charlotte Mason principle application doable? Absolutely, yes. Is every type of Charlotte Mason curriculum doable for every family and every season, every child? No. it is not always doable. For me, Ambleside this year would not have been doable. There is not a single way that we would have gotten through all those various readings with all 4 of my kids and all kept our sanity and enjoyed school. If I had gotten us through all of it, it would have been like herding cats, pulling teeth. It would not have been pleasant, and it wouldn't have actually been what I wanted for our education. Like, yeah, can we tick off some boxes? Sure, but what is the home environment in the meantime? How are we treating each other in the meantime? Are we enjoying education? Are we learning to love learning, to be lifelong learners? Like, that's one of the things that I think all of us as Charlotte Mason homeschoolers want for our kids, is for them to love learning, to enjoy the process of learning, so that they will be lifelong learners. Even when they move out of our homes and move on with their lives, we want them to know how to learn and how to enjoy learning. And this year, if I had tried to force the things that I enjoy just because I enjoy them and I want homeschool to look a certain way, if I had tried to force that instead of allowing my priorities to shift, it could have done a lot of damage. And that's not me tooting my own horn, by the way, and being like, well, look at me, I'm so wonderful at shifting my priorities. I honestly wonder if last year I should have had a priority shift, and instead I just kept plowing through, because this is what we do. We are Charlotte Mason homeschoolers. I love this curriculum. I love this method of looking at things. I don't know. I wonder what things that we could have missed out on. For example, we have very close friends who used to live here in West Virginia with us, and over the last, I don't know how long they've been gone now, a year and a half, maybe, have they been gone 2 years? They might have been gone 2 years now. But anyways, they started traveling the country to try to find where they would actually like to settle down. And so they've been on the move as they homeschool their kids. And our kids were really close with theirs. And the year before they left, there were so many different times where I could have made more time for us all to be together. And instead, my focus was always like, oh, we have so much school to get done. And like, if we don't get through this stuff, then we're not going to finish when I want to for the year and all of that. So we still saw them some, but not nearly as much as what we could have before they were gone. If I'm just going to prioritize having this mega feast, what else falls by the wayside? What else do I have to say no to because I want us to stay on track and do all of this extra stuff? Now, I am not saying to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And for a lot of families, a full, huge, robust Charlotte Mason curriculum can work. I see people, especially with 1 or 2 kids, doing it very simply. Once you start to get 3 or more, I really do think that you need to combine a good bit of subjects. And even Ambleside, like they have on their website that you can do like AO for groups, where you have them kind of sectioned off a little bit more to where if they're closer in age, they can be grouped in several of their subjects. Since I had already started it with them all being separate, it was going to be hard to find a year to kind of put them into where like nobody was having to repeat everything, but there weren't going to be like huge time gaps. It was going to be a lot to try to work that out, and it just didn't make sense with my brain, which I think I mentioned in the last video that like I looked at AO for groups, but it just wasn't going to work out. So I'm not saying that you can't do Ambleside online and that it's way too much and it'll cause you to not be able to do anything else ever. This is literally just specifically for us. And also in the time that God has us in right now, there were some things that I didn't really know were going to happen when I even made the last video. You know, just different adjustments that were going to be happening with my kids and different family dynamics and things like that. So yeah, anyway, I said all of that to say that sometimes in these groups, there's going to be moms who, you know, they're coming at it more from a perspective of, well, if I can do it, anyone can do it, right? Which a lot of times is how I felt too. Like, you know, I'm just a person, and if I can juggle doing this with everybody, then you totally can too. But again, I no longer really feel that way. My main advice is just to check yourself, be honest with yourself, Make sure that you are not trying to overextend yourself or your kids, because sometimes that can happen too. Although usually if you're a mom of multiple kids, the one who you're really overextending is yourself. They have their lessons with you, but then they might be able to go and do something else and have a break while you're working with someone else. But you are there working with people the entire time. You're really usually overextending you, but it can happen too where you're going to also burn out your kids. So I would just say, be super honest with yourself and say, if this doesn't seem doable to me, maybe there's a reason why it doesn't seem doable to me. And really try to figure out what those priorities are. If you are a Christian, pray about it. Pray about it. Figure out for real what those priorities need to be, because then you're never going to be steered wrong. Another thing to think about that I have kind of changed up this year, even if you're wanting to do a certain subject, maybe you need to reevaluate the way that you're doing that subject. So as I mentioned before, a lot of things we are now doing family style, but even beyond that. So foreign language is something that just has not stuck with us very well thus far. The closest that we came probably was with Latin. The kids actually did enjoy Latin. I was learning it alongside them though. I didn't have any Latin background whatsoever. And so I was teaching them something while learning it at the same time, which was a little tough. We had tried Spanish at one point. I don't know why Spanish doesn't work with me. And again, it was one of those situations where I was learning it alongside my kids. I also have mentioned in another video that we've done ASL classes locally because we do have deaf friends in our group too. So it's nice for the kids to learn how to sign and things with them. We haven't been doing the local classes anymore. We didn't start those back up this year, but they do still sign some at home and of course with the deaf people who we know. But the thing that I was avoiding was the thing kind of right in front of me, which is the easiest way to go, which is that when I was in school, I took 4 years of French. When looking at homeschooling stuff, I wasn't gonna go the French route because we have a lot more Spanish speakers in the country than we have French speakers. And so I was like, okay, at least they would be able to communicate with people who speak Spanish here in our country, but it was just unrealistic for me. Latin really had that draw because it is a very intellectual language. It's still the language of science. Lots of other languages, including our own, are based off of Latin. There's a lot of really good reasons to study Latin. But when it came down to it, if I want them to learn foreign language and I already know how to speak French, it's simplest for me to teach them French. When I tell you that this year has been so smooth with the foreign language learning, it has been so smooth with learning to speak French. The kids enjoy it. I enjoy it. My French was a little rusty and it's nice to be able to, dust it off and speak some French again. They've learned more French this year than they have of any of the other languages that we have tried so far. I was just avoiding it because I was going by kind of the more Charlotte Mason criteria. In a Charlotte Mason education, once everyone got to a certain age, they would learn Latin. And before they would do Latin, they would do a language of a neighbor. And I know that we have obviously Canada as a neighbor and there are French Canadians, so that still works. But we would be a little bit more likely to meet people in our communities who speak Spanish. And so that's why I was just trying to go with that kind of mindset and that criteria, when the simplest way and the way of least resistance was just to teach them what I already know. And that has gone swimmingly. So even things like that, I think trying to fit ourselves into a certain mold and say, in Charlotte Mason's principles, the way that Charlotte Mason did things, that they did it all this way. And so we really need to try to fit into doing it this way. If there is a path of least resistance for you in an area that has just not been working out, here is your sign, here is your permission. Take the path of least resistance to simplify your life, because otherwise you are going to get burnt out. And for me, one of the saddest things would have been to completely lose my passion for homeschooling. If I had not pivoted this year and tried to make everything fit the way that I think that it should fit, then I feel like I would have been in real danger of starting to lose that spark and that joy and that passion for teaching my children. And I want to guard that at all costs. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts. So as always, drop a comment below. Seriously, I really enjoy talking to you guys. I feel like I have the best subscribers that there are. Like, I tell my husband that all the time when I read you guys' comments. Everyone is seriously so stinking sweet. I love all of you, just so you know. You have all been super kind to me and are just such like conscientious homeschool moms. The love and dedication that you have for your kids shines through. So anyways, I always love to talk to you guys. So drop a comment below, whatever your thoughts are. If you've had similar situations happen, whatever the case may be, I just like to hear from you. And my next video is going to be exactly what it is that we're doing this year since we've paired back, how all of that is going. Yeah, all the good stuff. But I will catch you guys next time. Bye. Also, really quickly, I almost forgot to give 2 different updates. Number 1, I don't know if you've seen it, I've started doing a little bit of merch stuff. So there's a link for that down in the description box if you want to see. There's like t-shirts and mugs and different things like that that I have kind of dabbled in designing just a little bit. So if you're interested, you can get one of those. Number 2, don't forget also that I have started my own booktube channel. I've just been talking about different things that I've been reading, what I recommend, what I rated on Goodreads, which also reminds me, if you want to be my friend on Goodreads, I would love that. I will link that down in the description box too. Okay, I think that that's actually all this time. Bye!